Hello and welcome to today's class. Today we're painting a green frog. So this one's a fun one to do. There's lots and lots of greens to consider and lots of subtle shadows and highlights and things. So welcome to today, and I look forward to painting this with you. The first part of our class will be focusing on charcoal drawing. That's practicing the drawing, getting everything the right perspective and size, etc., using the grid method. We'll do that for a short while, and then we'll move on to the pastels. So let's get cracking. Bear with me while I share my screen. My screen will be looking down onto my table, so that's what you'll see, and you'll be able to see what I'm doing. There we go. So this is my table. These are today's notes. You should have that one downloaded, and we've also got your images. So I've sent you two pictures of the frog. There's a grey one and a colour version. The idea of doing that is so that you can put them onto another screen nearby or print them out or whatever you need to do, so you can see that reference picture really clearly and easily from where you are. Okay, so as I said, charcoal drawing first. We're going to focus on, to draw the picture, we're going to focus on the grid picture with the coloured frog, and we're going to draw up a grid on our page. Then we'll be looking at tones using the black and white picture and doing that in charcoal. So you'll need an art diary or a piece of white drawing paper, something like this, and you'll need some charcoal. So this is my little messy set of charcoal sticks. I've got all sizes in here. Obviously, I don't use the big fat ones very often, but to draw, I like to use something that's smaller and narrow like that. And then for shading, I like to use one that's a little bit thicker, and I can lie it down on its side and just use it like that, so that it's easier to hold on to if it's a bit wider. So I'll be using those two pieces of charcoal today. You can see our picture today is in portrait format. So that means it's shorter at the top and the bottom and longer either side. So it's designed to fit onto our pastel paper, the Colourfix paper I use, which is 23 by 30. So it's a little bit bigger than an A4. So what I like to do at this stage is draw up your area like this. So this will be my page, basically. Draw your page up onto your sketch paper. You can fill the whole page if you want to. You can do it smaller, bigger, whatever you like. I like to do it about this size in the middle of the page. That way I've got some room around the outside to sketch and draw and make notes and things, and I can do my artwork in here. Then I like to put my grid mark on. So the grid method for drawing is a really good way to break your picture down into sections, and it helps you to see everything as shapes and lines rather than looking at a frog, basically. So when you use the grid method, what you do is you measure on the picture where different things intersect on the grid line. Now, if you have a detailed picture like this, we could have potentially broken this up into more grids. So you could, if you wanted to, put more lines on there and then do the same onto here and break it up into smaller sections, and that'll help you draw your picture. But we'll just start with 4 parts today. And I might actually put that on the other side because I'm left-handed, so I need to have that side clear. I'll just pop the picture here so you can see what I'm talking about as we go. All right, so this is my page. I've got my grid line on there. There's a grid line on here. And now we're going to look at the intersections and where all the bits and pieces go and the angles and shapes. So let's have a look at where the frog's body finishes and where it intersects on the line here. Now you can use a ruler if you want to find the exact halfway measurement. So if that's 70, then halfway is just below the end of the body. So looking at my page now, I can say, well, if that's about halfway, and I do all this estimating at this stage of the class because I like to be a little bit loose and free and not get too restricted with my measuring, but just to relax a little bit and get into art mode. So the body of the frog intersects this line just above about halfway up. So if that's about halfway, then I'm going to put it about here. So make a little mark there where the body intersects the line. Then you can come across from there and you can say, well, how far in is that corner there of the body? I'm going to say it's about that far in. And then it goes down in an angle. So I'm just following that outside border or the outside edge of the frog, all right? We're not going to look at the details just yet. We're looking at the outside outline of it. So we can say the body comes across to about there, and then it starts to curve down into the leg. So let's look at where that comes to, that point where the leg bends. So if we look at that, we can say it's about, sort of about halfway across this side, this measurement of the quarter. So I'm going to be about there-ish. And how far up from this line? Probably about a third. So let's say about a third, say about there. So if I know that that line has to finish here, I can now draw that across, and I can see there's a little arc in it. There's a slight curve in that line, so I can go like that. Okay. Then we can look at this line here, which is the other side of the leg, and it comes up past the body of the frog. So where does that point come to there? So if the body of the frog is here, then this comes up about there. So put a little spot there like that. And then you can bring your line down to that section there. So can you see how when you follow the grids method and work out your distances and where all your points are, you can basically just join the dots. Okay, so then we can come across, we can look at the width of that part there of the frog. It's about that wide, let's say. And then we're going to come back down again and find where this point is. So let's call it the knee of the leg, where the bend in the knee is. So where does that come to in relation to the grid line? So let's say it's about a quarter of the way up. So about there. How far in? I reckon about, no, not half anyway. So probably about there, about to there. Let's see if we can get this right. So I can bring my outside of my leg down and around to that point there. And that gives me the bend in the knee. And then it goes back up into here, doesn't it? So that's our leg, basically. Took a while to draw a leg, didn't it? All right. Now we're going to continue the outline of the body around here. So it's a bit dark in there. Everything's a bit sort of lost in the shadows, but we can still find the lines and bring this edge around. So how far over from this center line does the edge of the eye come to? So let's work that out. And as I said before, you can measure it if you want to. So it's less than halfway. If I measure this, you can see that's nearly 5 across through there. So halfway is here at 2.5. So it's just inside of halfway. So then you can come over here, 60, so that's halfway there. So I can say it's about there. Just going to put it about there. So then we can say that that's where the eye sits. So we can bring our line down to there, like that. And then we have the top of the mouth coming around. And we might put that in, why not? So see the top of the mouth, that's the greenest part of the face. So we're coming down below the eye, and then it curves around, and it's like a big grin, and it nearly hits the line just here. So it comes down to about there like that in a curve, right? So that's the top of the mouth. So you can see we're just sort of getting all the lines and all the bits and pieces in place at the moment. I'm just going to make the body. That's the body of the frog there. If I rub out this line, then they'll be less likely to confuse myself. So the body there. Then we can come down and we can look at whatever else is happening in this quarter. So let's have a look. We've got the top of this leg here, and it comes across and it sort of settles just under there. So about there. So we can bring that line across through there and then down. And that's the top of the front leg there. Okay, so that's all we need to get in for that part of the frog at this stage. So that's the left hand top quarter. There is a little bit of a, you can see some of the foot through here. It's a little bit sort of lost and blurry and hidden in the dark, really. So you can put a bit of a shape there. I think it looks like a bit of a boot or a shoe shape, but it's blurred and it's soft and it's off in the background. Now we can come over into this top right-hand quarter and we can continue to build our frog over here. So notice that there is less of him on this side. So this side of the body of the frog on the left quarter that we've just done is wider than this side. So that means the middle of his body sits at about there. It's not actually on the center line. So good to note that, because we need to make sure that we don't make this side as wide as that side. So let's have a look, see how far in the head comes. Oh no, we'll go back up here to the leg. We better start at the top. Okay, so the leg, back of the frog comes across, and then we've got a little dip here, and then we've got this leg that comes down there. So I'm looking at the outside edge of this leg that comes down through here. Let's find where the knee sits, where it bends in the knee. So it comes in probably about a quarter of the way across and maybe a quarter of the way up. So if we go a quarter of the way across and a quarter of the way up, I'm going to put it about there. So if that's the bend of the knee, then we need to bring this point across. So, and it sits up, the end of the leg sits up a little bit higher than the back of the frog. So we're going to go up here, little step at the back, and then we just do this little line through here, a bit of an arc like that. And we've got a little bump in there too, so just do a bump. None of these lines are perfectly straight. And then we've got a little bend here, and it comes across to there. How far in does that bend finish? So just here under the eye, whereabouts in the page does that sit in relation to your grid? So I reckon it's probably about a third of the way in, about there, and about, just over a quarter of the way up. So it's slightly higher than that line there. So you've got to measure your heights. If this bend comes to there, put a ruler across there, and you can see the intersection is slightly higher than that. So it's got to come up a bit higher than that. So I'd say about there. Okay, and then we can put the line through to there, and we know that this is the eye. So we've got our eye there, and the edge of our face, or the lip, comes out like that, and then we can join up the line for the mouth. Okay, so that's the outside edge of the shape of the frog for the leg and the body. So let's continue this down here and off so that we can do a little bit of the leg and the chin bit there. So we've got a little V shape just through there under the mouth. And then we'll come back up to here to the leg, because we need to divide these up here. Because this is a bent leg, we need to make this little hole in between the two. So we can do what looks like to me a smiley lips coming around like that. And then the body of the frog continues through like this. Okay, so that's about the shape of him. I know it looks a bit odd at the moment because it's just outlines, but once we get him filled in and shaded, it'll make more sense. Just moving that joint up a little bit there. Cool. And then we can move down into the next quarter. Oh no, hang on, we've got to do his toes, don't we? We've got this little foot here. So obviously that's attached to this leg, but we can't see where they meet or join. So we've got to do the same thing. We've got to figure out where does this come in and intersect, and where does it go off the page. So it goes off and it comes in and it sits here just under the knee. Then we have a little C shape here of where the webbed feet kind of have a gap, so that comes around like that. Then we've got another C shape here, like a moon shape. That's the other side of the foot. And then it comes, just a little bit of it goes down into that next quarter. So you can put that in now. And then we can come around and we can draw the rest of it in like that. So that's the shape of his foot. Cool. This is a really good way to rehearse the drawing, because when we do it in colour, we've got to draw it all again, but it'll give us some memory. It's also a great way to make changes if you're not quite sure if you got it right or not the first time round. So I'll just continue his little foot down through here, or his toe, into that quarter. And now this bottom section, this one here, we've got a lovely big leg and foot there, haven't we? So, and just a little bit of the bottom of the frog comes across through there. So let's look at the shapes that are running around in here. Let's go to the outside of this leg first. And let's notice where the elbow comes to, and it comes to about here. It's just below this lovely toe. So we've got the toe there, the top of the elbow comes to about there. So we can do an angle like that. And then we can come down, and how far down do we need to go? So that toe sits probably about 1/5 of the way up inside this quarter, and maybe 1/3 of the way in, so about there, let's say. And it has a little arc on it. And this elbow comes out on almost a right angle, and then it comes down like this into the toe. Okay, so that's the outside edge of that guy. Then we can do the inside edge. So again, we've got to find the lines where they intersect according to the grid line. It bulges out from under the chest, comes in a little curve, and then down like this to about there. This foot is huge. It takes up a lot of space inside this quarter. So don't make it too small. You've just got to put everything in there in proportion, and it'll work out. And sometimes we look at something and think, no, it should be smaller than that. That's not right. But trust your measurements and trust what you see on the page, because it is right. So if we look at this foot, how much space it takes up, it goes from here all the way up to, I'd say 2/3 up, so about to there. So that would be that toe there, comes to there. So it's a massive foot. So let's mark where that toe goes, and then we can run around like this and draw it in. Like that. And in again, got all these lot of knobby bits on the ends of the toes. Around like that. So that's basically our frog foot sitting there like that. All right, now we can continue over onto the other side. That's all the info we need to put in there. You can rub out this bit here and carry over into the last quarter. So continuing the chest of the frog down through here and across. So he's got this belly, then he's got what looks like where the legs join onto. So it's almost the legs are like a bridge here. They come across all the way across under the mouth and then down into the next leg. So it's like this one piece. And then we've got this light, bright lip of the frog at the top there. So just noticing those shapes, it'll really help you get everything in the right place. So moving across to here, we can come now and draw in the rest of the leg over this side. And then it arcs down, doesn't it? Comes down like this. Now this foot is lower than that, higher, sorry, than this one. So it's got to sit up higher. We have more empty space in this quarter. So let's work out where this toe sits, this bottom toe on that foot. And if you get your ruler, you can see it's level with about here. Okay, level with that spot there on the other foot. So I can say it comes to about here, which is good to know, because then we can do our little shape like this and around, do another one like that, and then another one. I'm doing this now. I should have measured, but I didn't. So let's do it properly. Coming down here, across like that, and then we've got one little toe that comes out like that, around, another toe there. This one comes down to here. There's a nice big wide gap there, and this toe sits up the back there, curls around, and then we join onto the leg. Easy peasy. So now we've got the outline of everything in, and it's all in the right spot. So that's the most important thing, is to get everything in proportion, sitting in the right place on your page, so that we make sure we get it all done. And, you know, there's nothing worse than getting to the end of a painting and realize that the drawing was wrong right from the start, because you can't undo it by then. So it's worth investing the time now to get the drawing right, because then you'll have a happier experience and a much better outcome. The drawing's the most important thing. All the shading and stuff, that's just the fun stuff. That's the icing on the cake. Okay, so we've got everything in. We just need to pop in the eyes now, work out where they sit, and then we can move on to the pastel. Okay, so looking at this eye on the left, let's come back up here now. And they both bulge out beyond the edge of the frog. This one not too much, but it does definitely bulge out. And you need to work out where that sits in relation to the legs and the mouth and everything else. So it kind of sits about there. You've still got to have space around it for the leg to go behind and the body to sit up behind. And it's got a little hooded shape above the eye there. You can see that the light's catching it on this side. So this area is lighter, and behind it in here is darker, isn't it? You can see all the shadow through there. That's the darker side because of the light. The light in this picture is coming from the right. So it's actually coming in from the right-hand side, which is casting shadow onto the left side of everything. Okay, so we've got our eye there. Comes down like this, and then it's got a dark rim around it, which we've already got in there with our charcoal. So just put your little pupil in, which is a little stroke, straight, well, almost straight line. And then we can come over to this side and work out where this eye sits. So looking at it in relation to the leg, it comes out in front of the leg here and back in around there. So it bulges out like that on that side. It's a little bit higher. The eye on the right is slightly higher than the one on the left. You look at the heights of those. So you've got to make that one a tad higher. And bulging out just in front of the leg there. And then it's got its little pupil thing through there. And notice the shadow on the hood of this one is like a triangle of shadow just in there. And that's telling us where the light's coming from in this picture. And you can see the shine on the eye as well. So the light's coming from the right. And you can see the light on the knee of this leg, on the eye, the edge of the eye over here. On the nose, there's some little nodules of light there that are catching on the bumpy bits that are poking out, catching the light. The elbow, top of the elbow here, and the leg. So just running your eye around the picture and noticing where all the lights are hitting. Okay, so now we've got the main drawing in place. I don't want to spend much more time in here. We need to get on to the colour version because that's the fun part. But just take note of the shadows and the shading, okay? So you can see the front of the frog here on his little face. He's got some bumpy bits there. So they're all his little lumps and bumps. At the back here behind the left eye, there's some dark areas there. That's shadow, okay? So that's telling us that there's shadow over there on the body. Underneath the frog, so all around the frog, there's shadow, particularly on the left side of the frog. So you can see over here on the left, everything's much darker. And that's where we're getting some lost edges of different things. For instance, that little foot that's off on the left at the back there, we can't really see all the details of that foot. We just see that we know it's there, and we can just see a little bit of it because it's in shadow. So just noticing all of that, because that's going to be important when we put our background in. It's dark through here, it's dark under here, and we've got a beautiful crease on the leaf down through the middle there. That's a lovely little crease that we can put into the background as well. So all these things are important to note because they're what's going to help you bring the frog alive, and it's not going to stop it looking like some sort of flat drawing like it looks now, and bring it alive with tone and shadow and shape. And that's when it'll start to really jump off the page, basically. Okay, so let's get started and look at what colors to use next. I know this is a terrible drawing, but the idea of doing this is to just determine where everything needs to be so that we're rehearsing the picture, becoming familiar with it, and just working out where things need to sit. Okay, so I'm going to put my charcoal aside and we'll have a look at the pastel side of things. First off, I'm going to show you what colours I've picked out for today. So these are the colours that I chose for today's art class. Now, I may have picked up a couple more on the way. I've also got some charcoal because that'll come in handy for doing things like shadows and fine lines around the eyes, etc. Yeah, so they're my colours. There's a dark green, a mid, another mid, and then your beautiful limey green. So that lime green will be the main froggy colour. And then we'll use the other greens to create contour and shadow. The darker green, not the darkest, but these three top greens here will be the leaf. And we're going to get some contours and shapes through that as well. So if you want to choose your colours, I'm going to go and find my piece of paper. So the paper I'm using today is a recycled piece of colour fix paper. I went to my drawer to get a bit of paper out for today's class, and I realised I didn't have any darks left in there, and I want to work on a dark paper because I think there's a fair bit of shadow, etc. in this picture, and I think a dark paper would be a good option, even though we're going to fill up the whole page. So I thought, well, I've got all these demo paintings from classes that I've been collecting, and those papers are perfectly good. So what I did was I grabbed my paintbrush and my water, and I've just literally gone over a few of my demo paintings so I can reuse the paper. So you can see this one was a pink rose, which we might have done a couple of courses ago. And I thought, well, that's not something I want to keep or frame or whatever. It's just a demo piece, so I can recycle. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. And just trying to reuse my papers and make use of them. So if you do have paintings lying around that you don't particularly want to keep, that were just practice pieces, then a great way to reuse the paper is just get a stiff brush, a bit of water, wet it and just brush it all in like a painting. And then you've got a brand new background to start with. And it's already stuck. It's not going to move or lift very much. So you can use that as your background or just go over it all again. So it's a great way to reuse your paper because it's not cheap anymore. They're about $3 a sheet, these pieces of paper. So, you know, if you're going through 2 or 3 a week, that starts to add up. So that's what I've done today. So there are our colours. Hope you've got them all ready and sorted out, good to go. We've got four greens plus a very pale green. I've got a purple, a dark sort of shadow purple. Then I've got a lilac-y colour, which I can see down here around the mouth of the frog. Blue, because there's blue on his legs, and orange for his feet, and some yellow for the feet as well to make some highlights with the orange. And my blue violet, trusty old blue violet, because that's really good to get some darks in there. Excelente. So let's start first with marking in our background on our pastel paper. So I'm going to tape the corners down on this just so that I don't have to hold on to it. It'll stay nice and still for me on the board and keeps me with a free hand. So it's good if you can tape your paper down or clip it to a board or something like that. It just stops it moving around to get some new bits of tape. So just do the corners. If you want to keep your white edges nice and clean, then by all means tape all around the edge and that'll keep it nice and clean. If you do that, just stick the tape onto your clothing or something first and then put it on the paper because it can tear. It tears quite easily, especially if your tape is very sticky. Okay, cool. That's that done. Have your picture nearby. And then we're going to rule up our page with our grid line. So find your halfway. So this is 23, so 11.5 is halfway for me. Just going to lightly draw in my grid line. I'm using a white charcoal pencil to do this. So you can use a pastel pencil or a charcoal pencil. And the lighter colour will be better on the dark paper, obviously, because then you can see it. If I was on a lighter paper, I would use either charcoal or a pastel pencil. I like charcoal because it's soft and it's easy to get off. Easier to get off sometimes than it is to get your pastel off. All right. I have a kneadable eraser, so I can use that to rub things out or blend things in. Got a couple of bits of charcoal there in case I want some charcoal and all my pastels. So the first thing we're going to do is put the background in. Now, the reason for that is it's just easier to get the background in first and then work forward, like come forward and not have to try and get in around the frog later on to put the background down. And you can see this background is very green. So I've got, he's obviously sitting on a green leaf or something with a crease down here. So let's try and see if we can make a green leaf with a crease and then we'll pop our frog over that. First off, though, we're going to draw him back in and get the shapes and everything in the right spot. Then we can put the background kind of around the drawing. That way we don't have to try and remember or see through the background. So drawing him in one more time. Let's get started. Using your pencil, mark in the areas where it intersects those lines again. So remember the back of the frog intersected probably a little bit more than halfway, about there probably. And then draw the line across to there. If you've done it once, then you'll remember how to do it. Just get your points in and work out where everything intersects in relation to the grid. Okay, so I reckon the V comes to about here, about that far up, that far in, maybe a bit lower. So then I can come across from the back of the frog here and do that little arch and do the join up here. That's in between the legs. Then we come up to this section here. So it sits up higher than the back of the frog, about there. So then I can join those dots. So bring that around to there like that. give him a nice little wide bend in his knee back there. And then bring the rest of that side of the leg down through here. And then it comes around in a bend, and that's his knee, isn't it? It comes up like that. Go, around like that. Okay. Then we can come down here and we can see the eye sort of bulges out about there. And then we have some mouth. So look at the height of the mouth in relation to the grid line. Sits about there. And comes down almost to touch the line down through here. Okay, so that's that side. And the eye would bulge about there, I reckon. Then we've got the top of this leg that comes across from here. So there's a little angle there. Comes across through there. Where does it sit in relation to this bend or joint? Comes to here and then around. Okay, and then we've got that little bit of foot underneath here that we can't really see very clearly. Kind of sits in there under that knee. So that's about where that shape sits. We can draw in the rest of the eye here. So it's not a circle, it's an oval shape. And the side of it goes off the edge of the face. And then we've got the hood there like that. And the mouth lines. And then his body kind of joins up and comes across like this. And that leg vanishes underneath there because it's in shadow. All right, so that's that side done. Then we can move over and we can do this side. So just push my board across a little bit. So again, we're coming down here. We can look at the shape of the frog. So let's do his body first. Let's see where this part of the face comes to inside this section. So I'd say it's about 1/3 of the way in and not much higher than there. It's higher than that side, so it's got to be about there. Cool. So then we can draw the mouth. Let's join up those dots there. And this one can come down through here like this. And this lip sort of bulges out a little bit there, doesn't it? And then we've got the eye. Now the right eye is slightly higher than the left eye. So let's see, how tall is this eye? 2.5. And the top of it's there. So if I make this one about there, so you can kind of make it the same measurement. Bring it out like this because it bulges out like that into an oval shape. Okay. And then we've got this lip that comes around like that. This is where you need your kneadable eraser if you've got to rub things out, if you made them too big or something. There we go. Lovely. And that little hood on the eye there, that's important because we've got to put the shadows and the lights in there so that he looks like he's 3D. So you've got to put all those bits and pieces in to get all the lights in, shadows. Rightio, so now we can join up the rest of his body. So he comes to about here at the back there. So that's his body. And then we've got the leg that comes around. So this leg sits lower than that one on the other side. So it comes up to about there, out on a bend, and a bend in the knee is about there. And what I'm doing is I'm lining it up with the eye, all right? So I'm looking at where that sits in relation to the eye. So the bend in this knee is level with the middle of that eye. So it comes to about there. And then back like that. Okay, so we've got this lovely shape. And then it's got a little bump on it there. That leg has a bump that comes out like that. Come down into this knee. Have a little bend around there and up through there. And then we can do that funny little shape, that smiley mouth kind of shape that does this and gives us the gap between the legs where it's bending. Cool. All right, so that's that bit done. Now we've got to put his foot in. So same thing again. This foot goes off to the side of the page so we can't see that toe. And we come in with a C shape down to about there. And that one goes off, but it also goes down into the next quarter. So you can take it down through there, and bring it up across here. And another toe there. And then another round bit there. And that comes up under here, doesn't it? So it comes up beside the face, that other little toe. Something like that. So that's about where that foot sits. Then we can carry on down into the next quarter. So let's have a look at the shape of the frog here. He's got his little leg that comes out down there like that, under that toe. That toe's a bit low actually. Put it up a bit higher. So this comes out through here, and then we've got this elbow, haven't we? This almost right angled elbow. And he looks like pretty muscly, doesn't he? He's got this really muscular sort of stance. That's the shape of that leg there. It bulges out a little bit. Looks really strong. Okay, and then back up under here to where the bottom of that section goes that join the legs together. And around. And then down. Like that. Now we look at this foot. It takes up a lot of space, this foot. So we can see that the toe comes down to about here. The next toe comes up and it sits at about there. It's up higher than that one. There. That one comes up and around there. That one goes around there and joins back onto the leg. So that's a lovely big foot. Notice how the green finishes down there too on the side of the foot, comes off into a little peak down into there. So we've got this lovely big green area of leg. Then it turns orange as it goes into the foot. So that's fun. Then we can continue across up here where the lines intersect. So we've got to put his belly in, which is this part. It's that sort of that green belly. And then the line on top of that is where the legs go across and join up. And then we've got that bright light lip of the frog that runs across there. Cool. Let's carry on and get this side done. So moving across to here and then bending down like that. This leg is shorter because it's positioned differently. And it comes down to there. So let's again look at where our toes and things stop and start. So that toe on that side is level with about halfway between these two. So about there. Then the next toe is level with the top of there. That toe is higher than this one, so up here. And that one is level with, not much, with about that. So it's about there. So I've got all these points in where the toes are level with. So that gives me a bit of an idea of where to put everything. So coming around like this. And then that one comes down like that. And lifts up off the leaf, and then this one touches down here. And that one goes over there. So just marking in all those shapes. like that. So that's basically the outline of the frog. Okay, so we've got our drawing ready to go. Then we can start to work on the background. We can push all of that in and muck around with that a little bit, because there are some tones in the background. Even though it's a green, you can see in the background there's a fair bit of dark, especially up here in the top left area. And then there's a crease in the leaf there, so we can put that in and we can illustrate that with a dark accent or tone. There's a lot of dark over here under the frog. That's casting shadow. The light's coming from the right, so there's shadow being cast on the left side. So there's a lot of darkness in there, which is nice because we have all these soft dark edges that we can lose off into the background. So if you grab your mid green, that's this color for me, I'm just going to literally put that all over my page. Okay, so I've got the pastel on its side, little stick of pastel just on its side, and I'm just going to wipe that around all over my page and fill it up with green. When you put it around the frog, the outline of the frog, just try to sort of overlap the edges a little bit. So you will lose some of your drawing, but we don't want to have a gap or a halo between the frog and the leaf. We want to make it look like it's all together. So you have to overlap those edges a little bit. Okay, down through here. So we'll just get one layer of this green on first, and then we'll put another layer down where it's darker. So down in here in the shadows, we'll put some dark tones through this, whether that's a dark green or your blue violet. It's up to you. Bit of both probably, if you want to use both. And we'll start to work on the tones in the leaf. And then we can get stuck into the froggy. So see how I'm just running my pastel around the page, filling it all in where there's green, just pretty much everywhere. By leaving the feet and frog empty, it just keeps the paper clean so we can apply pure colour to it. We don't have to worry about, not mixing with whatever's underneath it. So that's my basic page full of green. Okay, like that. And now I'm going to just pick up my blue violet. So this is my darkest pastel. And you can see at the top there's a bit of dark. I'm just putting some dark in here now because I want to get that crease of the leaf in there and just a bit of variation in the tones happening. So I'm putting it where I can see there's shadow or dark. And I'm mixing it with the green because that won't hurt. That'll be quite nice to mix it in. And then there's that crease that comes down here, and it just touches the toes on that right-hand foot. Okay, so we need to know that that's where it sort of touches. So I've got my blue violet in here, and I've marked in that crease. And just a bit of dark around where I can see shadows and things. All right, now I've got that going on. I'm just going to pick up another green. This is slightly lighter, I think. Just going to zhoosh a bit of that around, just where I can see a bit of light. I want to create some interest in the background. I don't want it to be all just one flat colour because I think that's a bit boring. So it's nice if you can add a little bit of tone or highlights to things just to give it a bit more interest. Okay, so that's my mid-green and my other mid-green. I've got two mid-greens there. One's a bit brighter than the other. And then I'm going to get my lightest green. So this is my froggy green. I'm going to throw a bit of that in there too, just because I want to. And I love mixing colours. I think it's just the funnest thing ever. And of course, with pastels, we do it on the paper, not on a palette. So you sort of don't know what you're going to get sometimes. That's the fun part. Okay, so I've got a fair bit of pastel on that page now. So what I'm going to do is start to push it all in with my fingers. Then I'll tip off the dust and I'll see if it needs any more information before we move on. So I've got 2 or 3 tones of green, a dark blue violet or a dark green for the creases and the dark sections. Now I'm just going to push in the green. I'm doing little round sort of movements, trying to vary the way I move my fingers to try and give it an organic sort of feel. If I was going across in the same direction all the time, it would look too structured. So when it's an organic thing like this, like a leaf, that's got a natural sort of shading and shape, it's good if you can move your fingers in the same sort of way. So keep your fingers loose and natural. So see how that's just softly blending in up there? That's lovely. And then up here, I want to have a bit of a harder edge where you can see the fold on the leaf as it goes off into the distance with the background. So again, just pushing my green in here and there. I'm using 2 fingers and I'm just pushing them around like that to try and retain that slight change in tone as we come down the page. So everything here on the left under the frog is going to be darker because that side's in shadow. As I mix the blue violet with my green, it's creating the most delicious shadow colours. It's really quite nice. Down here, it's more pure green again. So just noticing all those things in your backgrounds is really important. Okay, and then over on the other side, just around where the feet are, around where the froggy is, under his belly. There we go. And that little crease, I'm just pulling that through like that so that I just start to create a little bit of a look like it's a crease. And if you just softly pull the edges of that out, so you blur those edges a little bit and hopefully it'll look like it's kind of folding in slightly. So you can see I've lost most of my drawing now, which is kind of annoying, but you know, it's okay. We know where it went and we can put it back. I'm just going to tip off my dust. Okay, I'm just going to gently merge some of this dark around a bit more. I want to soften that off. Lovely. And I want to highlight just a few spots. So this spot here, see there's a shine on the picture, on the leaf just there. I know it's a little bit whiter than that, but I just want to keep it a little bit more subtle. So it looks like a crease. But I don't want that to dominate. I don't want that to be the first thing someone sees when they look at this. Okay. I'm just standing up to have a look from a distance to see if I'm happy with that. It's always good to look at your artwork from a distance. So if you're sitting down, it's good to walk away, or if you have it on an easel, step back from it, because you just get a much better perspective. And then if you need to change something, it's easier to see from a distance. Okay, so I'm just going to darken off that little bit there. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way my leaf is looking. So I'm going to just tip off my dust again. And then we can, literally I'm going to redraw my frog just in the couple of spots that need to be put back in, especially the feet. So let's just have a look here, see what needs to happen as far as that goes. So just, if you've lost your drawing and you want to know where things are and you don't want to go straight in with pastel in case you get it in the wrong spot, just lightly draw them back in again. Okay, we've already done it once, so we should have a bit of an idea about where things go. But it's good to refresh yourself and just touch up all those outlines and things, just in case you've lost your way. Okay, so I'm just marking in the edges of the leg, etc. We try to leave it uncovered, but it's really quite difficult, especially when you're trying to close up all your edges and not have have things, or have things easy to find, basically. Just by bringing these toes down a little bit bigger. One got to go there. They're huge, aren't they, these feet? You don't realise how big a frog's foot is until you start drawing it. Okay, that's that one. And across there like that. Sometimes it's better if you do press a bit harder with your pencil, because then you can actually see easier where everything's going. I've lost my entire foot down here. That's okay. Put them all back in. Top leg. All right. So that's probably enough information to get me started anyway. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to block in the frog with the green. So wherever you can see green on the frog is where we're going to put our brighter green. That's this limey coloured one. It's quite beautiful. So I'm literally going to do this kind of thing and just fill it all in with the bright green. And then after that, we'll start to put some shadows and tone in so that we can then start to work on the contours. But we've got to get the colour down first, because that'll give us something to work with. Okay, so that's that leg. Then we've got this leg over here. Through there. Beautiful. Down around the eyes, leave the eyes empty. We can put the orange in there later. Be easier to put the orange in and keep it nice and bright if it doesn't have anything else underneath it. Blocking in our froggy like that. And then looking at the front legs, so the front part of the leg is bright green, this part here, and then it goes down into orange feet, but the top part of the leg is blue. Okay, so I want to keep that for blue. And then this goes down into here. Something like that. And don't forget his little belly. We'll call it a belly. I don't know what that is under there, but we'll call it that. That's green also. That's pretty much where all the green is on him. Now we've got to put a little bit of a smudging for that little foot that's hiding in the dark down there. So I'm just going to put a little bit of green in there and then get my orange and do a similar thing. But I want to dab it off and keep it off in the distance because it's not really a strong part of the picture. It's off in the dark, so we can't see it all. So I'm just going to suggest that it's there, like that. There we go. So now we've got him in there like that. Then we can pick up our, let's go with a darker green first. And we can just mark in on the frog where the darkest parts are. So what we're looking for now are the shadows. So you'll find those easier on your black and white version. So if you look for the dark parts of the frog, so up here behind this eye on the left, there's some dark areas through there. That's giving me some shadows. Then at the back there, he's got what look like ribs. So there's like almost stripes of shadows across the back there, like that. Behind this eye on the right, we've got that little triangle of dark just there. That's telling us that's the hood of the eye. And then at the front, we've got some lumps and bumps, but there's some shadowy bits and pieces on the left-hand side, just under there. Okay, so what we're doing is we're marking in the shadows, the tones, the darker parts of the frog. On this leg on the left, we've got shadow down here. Using darkest green for this. I will probably put some blue violet into it as well afterwards if I want darker. I just want to try and get some shadow down onto those areas that have shadow on them. Both the legs have a shadow down on the left-hand side of them. It's just telling me that it's, you know, not catching the light. All right. So now we've got that on there. Let's just push some of this green in on the frog. So I'm going to use one finger and just start to push in the green. I want to make him nice and smooth. Because the frog is smooth, we want to try and keep it looking like that. It's a lovely smooth finish on him. Just pushing your finger around. Just one finger will be enough. And we want to push all the green into the paper so that it sticks to the paper, and then we can add more over the top. Build on it. Top lip coming across here now. Pushing all of that in. And noticing the direction of things. So, for instance, that little shadow that's up above this right eye here on the hood, just pull it in the direction that it's sort of growing in. That'll really help to give it the right contours. You have to think about which way things are growing or forming and move your finger or the pastel in that direction. Doing his little leg, coming around there with that. Up the back there. Down the side. And then into these front legs. I think this front leg here I've made a little bit too fat. So when you do something like that and you make something a bit fat or too wide or whatever, It's really easy to do that with pastels too. Things just seem to get bigger and bigger without you meaning them to. So if that happens, then you want to grab your background color, for instance, this green that I used, and I can bring this in and sort of go over the edges and make that leg a little bit thinner again. Okay. Then down through there. It's nice. So this, then you can come back over with your lighter green again and just sharpen up your edges and get more defined about where everything stops and starts. Okay, so I'm going to tip off my dust. And now I'm going to come back and look at the frog again because I feel like I need to add some more dark into those shadow areas. I feel like the dark green's not quite enough. It's a good dark, but I want to get a little bit darker in a couple of spots through here and up on the hood of the eye. So this is my blue violet. It's a very strong colour and usually quite soft and crumbly. So you don't need a lot of it. But it's a great colour for shadows. Darken off back there a little bit. And getting some contour in here. So I'll put some around here on this leg. And I'll put some here too in between the folds on that leg. There's some over here on the back of the frog behind that left eye and a little bit on the nose there. So just dabbing it on at this stage. I haven't blended anything in yet. I'm just dabbing it on and just getting something down on the paper so then I've got something to work with. All right, so we're just focusing on the green parts of the frog at this stage. We'll do the eyes and the other bits and pieces in a minute, but bear with me while we focus on the green and get this contour happening. So now I'm going to grab my ring finger again, and I'm just going to start to gently dab in some of this dark into the green, where I want to get a little bit more shadow, a little bit more contour going on. So see how that's now starting to look like it's got some shape and body. It's no longer looking flat. It's starting to come alive now. So that's what we wanted to do. Bring it alive. Blending through these shadow areas. You don't want to spread them too far because they can get really dirty very quickly. So I'm just wiping my finger off in between little dabs because I don't want to add too much dark in too many places. This leg on the left sort of disappears off into the distance with its soft edge. So I've just sort of softened that off a little bit and made it wander off into the background a bit more. It's looking good. All right. Okay, let's have a bit of a play with some blue now. We'll pop some blue in to the blue bits. So this is a beautiful blue. It's a cyan kind of blue. Now there's some blue up here on this leg, just at the back there. It's got some lovely colours on him, this guy. So put bits of blue in there. Like that. And there's a bit of blue over here on the other leg. Just down here in the hole between the two parts. Just going to push a bit of blue through there. Lovely. There's a little bit of blue just at the end of the leg just here. Just a hint of it, just in there behind where the eye is going to go. A little bit of blue just in there. And then, of course, we've got blue on these front legs. So the left one is sort of off in the dark a little bit, so we can't really see the brightness of him. But there's a hint of blue in there. And then it's really bright on the other side, on this right-hand leg. It's lovely bright blue colour through there. Beautiful. That's nice. So now we've got our blue in there. I feel like I want to add more blue. Brighten it up even more. Okay, tipping off my dust. It's a bit odd, doesn't it? Bear with me, we'll get there. So now we can put some orange in there. Let's have a crack at that. Let's do this big foot up here at the back first. So we'll get that one done. So you just want to touch on some orange. This is a lovely bright orange. Try not to make it too big. Don't want to have to, you know, come back in around it with our green again to make it fit. It's hard though. It's hard not to go too big. And then this one sits under the knee of the leg, doesn't it? Notice this toe that's up here in the dark is in more shadow than the rest of the foot or leg. So we'll have to darken that off a little bit, and the same will happen on that front foot. So if we push in the orange, if you find your fingers are too fat for these little areas, then you might have a blender that you can use. So a rubber tipped blender, they're really helpful for times like this when you can't get into somewhere and your finger's too chunky. I haven't got one right here with me. Anyway, so what I wanted to do is just get that orange pushed in and then play with the contours. So a similar process to what we did with the froggy, looking at where all the darks and the lights are. So if you look at your picture, you can see there's shadow under the foot there. So there's a shadow running around. It's quite dark here up under the eye, where the foot and the eye sort of meet in that corner. There's a lot of darkness there. But there's also this webbed foot feeling. So you can see these little triangles through the feet. So when I say triangles, what I'm talking about is this sort of shape that's going up between the toes. It's like a little triangular shape going up through there. It's actually darker. I should be doing it dark. The light needs to be on these parts, not that part. Anyway, you know what I mean. I'll darken that off a tad. Just going to put a little bit of my blue violet in there. Not too much. I don't want to make it really, really dark. And then over under here, on this section here, it's quite much darker because it's in shadow. So I'm just going to put a bit of blue violet and mix that in and make a bit more of a muddy orange colour. And then push that in around here to try and create that webbed foot thing that's starting to work. Needs to be a little bit more dark in there. Where is my dark green? See what green does. I don't know if it's going to be dark enough with the orange. I thought it might make it a nice muddy sort of colour without having to go to the really dark blue violet. It's okay. The other option you can use to get your shadows, like I mentioned before when we started, is to use charcoal. So charcoal is good because you can actually get a fairly sharp or good line with charcoal. So if I come in here with my bit of charcoal, I've just got a bit more control because it's a finer, smaller stick and it's not quite as soft and crumbly as my pastel. So I get a really good shadow happening with the charcoal. So if you want to have a try with charcoal, it's a good option just to get those shadows and darks in there. There's a fair bit of shadow around the feet because they're sitting on the leaf. And because they're a solid object, they're casting a shadow. So you've got to kind of think about that and how it's sitting on top of the object that it's on. So if we put some shadow around the foot like that with the charcoal, and then I'll tip off the dust first and then I'll blur it a bit. So then I can tip off the dust, and then blurring it, I can just softly dab it and sort of pull the outside edge of the shadow into the background color so that it just softens it off a little bit. We haven't got such a hard line around the edges there, like that. Okay. And then I can, if I want to go darker again, and I feel like I do, I want a bit more drama in here, I can add a bit more blue violet through there and darken them. So it's nice to start off. It's a little bit like not going straight to white when you want to use your lights. Go to charcoal or something not too dark and see how that goes. And then if it's not quite strong enough, you've still got room to go darker. So it's a little bit of a cautious way to go. And it just means it gives you some room then to sort of play around a little bit. Bit of background noise coming from there, it's all good. Okay. So just darkening off in here. See on this side of the frog, there's shadow under here as well. As you work your way around the picture, you start to notice these things that you didn't really see before. But you're seeing shadow because if you want something to be brighter or lighter, then you need to put shadow near it, you know? So to find the light, you've got to have the dark. There we go. Just darkening off that little leg. Made it a bit wider through there. And then I can darken off in between where this leg folds as well. Just going to put another bit of dark through there just to get a bit more of a depth happening. And then if you come up and, you know, you go over a spot that you wanted to keep bright, just put more green on top. So you can continue to sort of layer your colours until you get everything where you want it to be. Okay. Just going to darken off my legs back here because I want to brighten up the body so the body will look like it's coming forward. So if I lighten this part here of the frog, just got distracted then, I should have stayed with the feet. Anyway, lighten up that part. Sort of just brings the body forward a little bit and separates it, not quite enough, from the legs. So if I want to separate it from the legs, I've got to darken off this part of the leg a little bit. See what I mean? Trying to make the body and the legs separate. Otherwise, they just all merge together. Just want a really subtle line between the two here. So just a little bit light and then a little bit darker. Down that way. Lovely. All right, so that's my foot. And it probably should come in a tad more than that. So again, I can pick up my background green and I can fill in the spots where I might have gone too big with my foot. Patch it up like that. That's why it's good to have a background colour because you can use it to trim your edges basically. Okay. Then I can just pop a bit more shadow under here. So I'm just mucking around now with my charcoal and my pastels, getting my tones and shadows done. That sort of thing. Tip off my dust. Go. Lovely. We'll put some light on the foot afterwards. So let's stick with the orange now. We're going to move down to this foot down here. Before we go there though, there's a little bit of orange in here. Just goes across there like that. Up under the chin. There we've got this foot here, so I'm going to put some orange on here now. Again, trying to not to make my foot too big. Around, looking at the negative space, so the negative shapes. If you can't find the shape of the toe, then look at the shape around it. Is it circular? Is it triangular? Is it wide? Is it long? All the things. And then filling in the foot with the orange. Cool. I can gently dab that in, try and get it to sort of stick to the paper. Fill it in a little bit, like that. There we are. That's that beautiful orange foot. And then the same thing, it's got shadow under it and shadow down here inside this leg. So if we bring the shadow down, I'm using charcoal again. Just want to bring the shadow down through here with my charcoal or blue violet or whatever you want to use. If it's dark blue, then that's cool. If it's black, if that's all you've got, then that's all right too. And I'm just putting some shadows under the foot now because that's being cast by the foot. Coming around like this. Then one to here. There. Like that. And then tipping off the dust. That. Good. So we're creating some shadows. What I'm going to do while I'm here is just increase the strength of this crease in the leaf. I feel like I want that to be a bit darker because I don't know if you've noticed, but these little feet are causing shadows just here. And little shadows just on the edge of that crease, like two little bumps just there. So if we make that slightly darker and then soften it a tad, then it might help to give my crease a bit more definition. Cool, cool. Cool. And then we can do little triangular shapes. So in here, we've got those webbed feet, remember? So we want to create a bit of shadow through here where the little webs are. And they're just triangle shapes in between the toes. Can you see those? So they're in there. So I'm just using, again, charcoal just to put those shapes in there. Create that bit of form. So it looks like there's form of the feet. Cool, cool. And then I can just softly blur that shadow off down on the leg there. Lovely. Now we can move across to the other foot. So this foot over here has feet as well, orange feet. So the same process. Once you get the process happening with one part of it, you sort of just keep repeating the process then. It's like a recipe, isn't it? You work out what colours you're going to use, how you're going to apply it, you know, what shadow colours are and all the things. And then you can just do it each time you get to the next part. So it's good to get a procedure or a recipe organised, and then you can follow that. And this applies usually when you're doing a lot of the similar thing, like petals on a flower. It applies then, because you can just find the recipe, work it out, create, you know, the process, and then follow it each time. There we go. So that's the orange on that foot. Make sure you get that little area of green on the foot too, where it meets, pushing it in a little bit so that it sort of hangs on to the paper. So as I said, if you've got big fingers, it's a bit tricky to get into those tiny spots. So it might be easier to use a blender or a pencil or something. Can't quite get in there to push it around. And then the same procedure over on this side. So we can use our charcoal to get some darks or shadows in there. Under there. And it's quite dark up here on the underneath the froggy in this section here. It's quite dark. A lot of darkness through there. And that's why we get all these beautiful soft glossed edges disappearing into the dark, because it's darker over there. And up through here. Cool. And shadow up into there under the chin. So yeah, sorry, back to the foot. I keep getting distracted. I see something in another part of the picture and then I wander off over there and put more shadow or something in. I forget what I was doing. Cool. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay. So I'm just touching up his foot with some orange where it's gone a bit dull, lost its brightness. Now I can tip off the dust. And again, just look at those really subtle little triangular shapes in the foot that indicate, you know, the webbed shapes of the feet. Like that. They're just subtle. They're very gentle little changes in tone, but it gives us contour and shape. There we go. Tipping off my dust. He looks a bit weird at the moment, doesn't he? We need to get his mouth sorted out, I think. Okay, so we haven't put lights in yet. We'll do that after. So don't stress if we haven't thought about that, because we'll do it after this bit. Pick up your mauvey colour, your light mauve, and we're going to start to apply that up around this mouth area. So we've got this mauve colour that kind of bleeds off the leg here, and it comes around like this, and it's sort of where the legs join. So you've got this light sort of bit of skin that comes under the mouth where the legs join up together, like they're part of one thing or something. So I thought mauve would be a good colour for under there. So just putting that through there. Then we need to add some shadow underneath it. So just through here, you can see underneath here there's some shadow that goes down onto that green belly area. And then a bit more mauve over the top of that. I need something even lighter. I think pick up this really pale green colour, which might do to create a bit more light through here. Yeah, here we go. It's better. just to get some light in there. And I'm going to soften it off a little bit, dab it in. And the next tricky bit we've got to do is that smile on the frog. That's that white area here. I'll put it in with pencil so you can see what I'm talking about. There's a white lip, got a little white lip, comes around here like this. Through there. And it's quite bright right there because that's the lightest side of the frog. It's where the light's catching. And then I can just softly pull that around and whiten it down a tad. Come back over with my original green now. So this is where we're going to start to get into the detail. We're starting to refine things, getting more detail organised. This side of the face over here, you know, that beautiful bit of cheek that comes over here on the right. Put that in there. And then the mouth. So that little bit of white or bright lip, quite lovely through there. Green up. You might have lost some of your green. I know I have. The vibrancy's kind of gone. It's got mucked up with other colours. So if you feel like you want to touch up some of your green areas, then do that now. Pick up your froggy green colour. Beautiful, bright, limey green. And we can just touch up some of the areas that might have got a bit dirty as we go forward. Okay. Darken off under here a bit more. So just, this is when you start to sort of really start to focus on getting the detail in there. Oh, it's coming along nicely. Beautiful. Now, let's have a look at these eyes. We've got to get these orange eyes in here now. Tipping off dust. It looks a bit weird without eyes, I reckon. So let's put those in. So hopefully you've left enough of the paper uncovered so we can get this pure orange in here. That's that one. Pushing it in a bit because you can see it's very subtle, but on the left side of this eye, the left eye, it's a bit darker. So what I can do, I can get my blue violet pastel, just put a bit on my finger and just sort of darken off on that left side a little bit. Because what I'm trying to do is create the feeling that it's turning the corner, so it's darker on that side. And I don't want to make it really dark. Okay, so that's good. And then on this side, it's really quite bright because this is the light side. It's catching the light, so we can put our bright orange in here on this eye. And again, I've left the paper unpainted so I can get the orange to be nice and bright. And then just slowly, gently pulling it around like this to push it into the paper. Okay, lovely. That's good. And this one has a bit of shadow just underneath, under here. Teeny weeny little bit of shadow under there. So I can just push some of that dark onto there and then pull it around a little bit. So that creates a nice little shadow on the eyeball. Now, the next thing we need to do is look at the dark rim around the eye. So if you pick up your charcoal or a black pencil, if you have one, and we'll just draw a dark rim around the eye, like that. Okay, so we're going to make that nice and black. Try not to make it too fat like I just did. But if you do, come back over with your orange and sharpen up that edge again. It's a lot of back and forth, isn't there? So that's a nice dark ring around there. And then this guy can have a dark ring as well. So it doesn't go all the way around the eye. It starts at the top up here because we can't see the other side of it. Comes around here like this. And then around the base like that. Lovely. Lovely, lovely. Now, while we're there, we can use your charcoal to put your little pupils in. Just do that now. Just one little line. Try not to go over it because it'll get bigger and bigger. Then we might need to just tidy up around the edge here. Get rid of some of that orange that leaked into my green. This is the trouble, see? Things all move around a bit, don't they? There we go. And now we're just going to start again, just to quickly look at, before we put the highlights and the lights in, because that's when it'll start to come alive. Just want to get a bit more dark in first. So I'm just going to run around my froggy face and notice where it's got darks. And if I don't have enough dark, I can put some more down now. So I just want to make sure that I get enough dark in there so when I put the lights on, it's going to be enough impact. Down through here, the back of this left leg, need a bit more dark under there, I reckon. And over here on this side. Okay, there's a bit more dark through here too. A few lost edges around here on the left because it's got lots of shadow. Lovely. Good, good. Okay, now what else do we need to look at? I need to come back with this green now and look at where I need to brighten up the green. So see the hood above this left eye? It's got to come across like that. So that will bring the eye forward and differentiate it from the back of the frog, which is back there. Okay, so we need to brighten this bit up with the bright green. It's got a little hood over the eye. Make that much sharper. And that will make the eye bulge too, because that's what we want it to do, don't we? These froggies have bulging eyes. We're going to make it look like it's bulging by doing that. The other side is also bulging, but it's different because of the direction of the light. But on the top here, it's got green. All right. And then it has that little triangle of dark that I'll come back and fix up or go over again. But it comes down like this and then across there like that. So that's also bulging. I just needed to lighten that little bit up in there. Then when I put the dark in, it'll make more sense. So there's a little dark triangle just here on the right eye at the back of it, just in there. Did that with blue violet just to darken up that section and make it look like it's having a little bulge. Cool. Now I picked up yellow, and I want to put some yellow on the highlights of the orange sections. So if you look at the feet, you can see there's some shiny bits on there. And I don't know whether yellow is going to be bright enough, but we can put it down to start. And if it isn't, then we can always go over it with something lighter. The same theory, just save the light for last, use other things first, and see what works. So just run your eye around the feet on the frog and notice where all the shiny parts are and put those in with some yellow. Even a pale yellow would be a good option because it's similar to white but not quite white. This yellow is probably a bit too dark or in tone, a bit too yellow. But it's still doing the job. It's just not quite as light as I'd like it to be. That's okay. I can lighten it up. That side of the leg, that left leg, I just put a bit of yellow here for the light. If you look at the picture, you can see it's got a shine on it or a glow. And then up here as well, there's a little glow on the knee or the elbow. Same over here on the other leg. On that, there's a little shine just through there. So now we're looking for the light, looking for the shiny bits that we can highlight on the frog and the feet. Okay, so I'm just using some yellow, touching up this back foot a bit more. It's not quite the right shape, that one, but anyway. So just lightening that up. Okay. Now, once you've done that with your yellow, grab your, I'm going to use this really pale green. This is light green. It's like a white. It's not white, but it looks like white. And I'm going to use that over the top of the yellow where I want more light. So see how that just brightened it right up. Gives it a beautiful glow, a bit of a shine. So you can see the lights bouncing off there. And you might not use it in all your light spots. Some light spots are really light and others are not as light. So maybe on the lightest, you could put those and then leave the others as they are with the yellow on them. But I'm just going to use this to run around my picture now and add some highlights. And that includes the little shine in the eye. And I'm going to lighten up this top lip, this little bit of white lightened lip there. See that little bit of light there? There's a bit of light under here. It's probably not light, but it's a light colour. So I'm just going to put a bit of that over and then blend it in with what's underneath so it doesn't shine too much. I don't want it to draw too much attention. On the feet, I've got some shiny bits. And there's also a shine on the elbow or the knee over there on the back leg. There's a little shine on there. There's a slight shine around the edge here. So I'm just running our little light pastel on all the shiny bits. I'm saving the light for last. On that back leg at the left, it's got like a light sort of shine or stripe through there. Put a bit of this pale green on there. It's so pale it looks white. Now the other place is on this eye. See this left eye? There's a little shine just there. I'm going to have to come back over that now because it's too big. But right there's a little shine. Get my charcoal and just sharpen up that dark line again. And on the nose, so you can see we put all the dark bits in to get the bumps, but there's also some light bits now that we need to add in to highlight the bumps and bring them forward a bit. So on the nose here, we've got this little bump here. So I can put a bit of light there just to give it some texture or shape. Another bit there. There's a couple of little light smudgy bits across the front there. Should not have done that with an orange finger on my green frog. Dear me. Go back over the green again. And okay, so now there's white or light around the edge of this eye. So see this eye on the right? It's got the orange eye, then we've got a black border, then there's a little white area, and then we've got the hooded skin. So I've got to get this white bit in. I'm just going to use my white pencil because it's such a fine area, fine line. I just want to make sure that I get it done with a very fine item. And my white pencil seems to have done the trick. If you don't have a white pencil, then you might just want to try and wing it with your bit of pastel. I'm just going to see if I can go over it now with my light cream green pastel. Just highlight that a tad more. And then I want to quieten out down this end of it. So it sort of tapers off to the side so we can't see where it goes. So I've got to make sure that that's going over there and around the eye, but we can't see that side of it. So it's got to sort of disappear off into the distance a bit. Okay, cool. Then we've got to put a shine in the eye. So that right eye has a shine just here. And when you put shines in eyes, you don't draw it or rub it. You just literally, if you get a nice soft pastel, just dab it on like this, give it a little wiggle and lift off. And that should stay nice and bright. If you put your fingers into it, it's going to get dirty again. So try really hard not to put fingers in there. Just going to highlight this little bit of back area here. Get some light to shine on that. And I think we're just about done. So what else do I need to do? I'm just going to run my eyes over this now and check my picture. So when I look at the picture on my screen, which I actually haven't done until now, it's got quite a lot of texture through here. The skin is very textured, isn't it? It's sort of bumpy. So if you wanted to get that sort of bumpy feeling going on, you could maybe just come back over with some green, a darker green maybe, and just sort of run it on there. And the texture of the paper might be enough just to let you put that speckly sort of texture on there of the frog skin. Quite interesting. Bring that down a tad more. And a little bit of green around here. I feel like I want to add a bit more purple under his mouth here. Get a bit more of that going on through there. And a bit more shadow just under here. So this is now when I'm starting to refine things, starting to get into the detail. And I have decided I probably should look at the picture on the screen because there's a lot more information in there than what I've got in front of me. And it's too light on the paper. Printouts are fine, but screens are way better because there's so much colour going on down in here under the mouth. There's orange and there's pink and purple and all sorts of colours going on. Quite interesting. Blue, a bit more blue in there. Gorgeous. He's looking good, isn't he? Quite like him. I do. Just make this nostril a tad bigger, or nose, or whatever this bumpy thing is. Lovely. There we go. Quite happy with him. I think he looks rather lovely for a frog. We haven't done frogs before, so I've wanted to do one for ages. Never got round to it. It's hard to find a good picture, to be honest. Good froggy picture. So that was it today. Lovely. So I might flick my screen over to have a look at everybody in a moment, just see how you went, and finish off for the day. If you are watching this as a video or recording, then thank you for joining me. And I would love to see your paintings. So if you want to forward them on to me, please do. I do enjoy seeing how everybody went. It's fun. Okay, so that's that for today. I'm going to flick off and come over and have a look at all the people. Oh, I'm just going to put a bit more shine in there. All right. You never know when to stop. Today's a good time to stop. If you want to see any more of my videos, you can find them at deliciousart.com.au. Thanks for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.